Welcome to the Metaphysics Hour. I'm your host, Rory Colgan. In episode 6, we covered the law of divine birthright. Today, in episode 13, we're going to continue on. The universal law of topic or discussion, I guess it's really not much of a discussion, is called the law of proper perspective. Proper perspective can best be summed up in a very simple phrase. I don't even know if it's a sentence, but this is the way I remember it. First thing is first. In other words, give your time, your attention, your energy to the things in life that matter the most. Correspondingly, as things become less relevant, give less time and energy to those particular things. Now, as a standalone, this law is a hard one to put into practice simply because there's no mechanism upon which you can gauge what is the most important. You have to use all the other forces that would be described as metaphysical laws in order to ascertain what those most important things are. However, we do that pretty naturally without a whole lot of intellectual examination. Essentially, it's what you feel and you think are most important. So when I said giving your time, attention, and your energy to the things that are most important, where does your mind go? More than likely, I would say probably 80% of the people that are watching this video have already ascertained or identified the most important things in their lives. Now it's more about implementation, putting it into practice of how to give time and attention to those important things. So for instance, if a person wants to be healthy physically, then they need to be spending a good portion of their waking life and even their sleeping life dedicated to their health and to their healing on a physical level. Exploring, researching, finding different modalities out there that perhaps are a little outside of the mainstream, because the mainstream is rarely, if ever, on the cutting edge. People have to be out there cutting that edge that then eventually 20 years, 30 years later, the mainstream catches on to. Now, granted, I might have been 10 years old at the time, or maybe 6 years old at the time, but people that were pioneering computers and computer software and hardware, they're playing around in a garage while I'm playing with my Ninja Turtles. And so it has taken 20 to 30 years before I've been able to truly benefit from that cutting edge idea and technology that happened a few decades ago. So keep that in mind, that most of us already have, I guess, the prize or the target acquired. In other words, we know what's most important to us. It might be family, it might be health, it might be relationships. If you're familiar with my work at Inner Health Today, then you know that my company is dedicated to aiding people to be healthy, wealthy, and influential. So those are the most important things that company is to educate people on and help facilitate greater health, wealth, and influence. Now, again, as you may have heard in some of my other talks, I'm talking about on a mental level, an emotional level, a physical level, and a spiritual level. So it's not just what we would call physical wealth. There's an emotional wealth, there is a mental wealth, and there is a spiritual wealth. Again, you can go back to the very first YouTube, which is Am I Wealthy? A self-examination quiz, if you're curious about my approach of looking at what wealth is. Now, that's just one of those. I'll probably have to do a self-examination quiz for health, and then also one for influence, just so people fully understand the depth of what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about things to make you, quote unquote, richer or more respected or blah, 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 blah. So that being said, the universal law of proper perspective for most of us has already, at least in some ways, been partially ignited and partially harmonized with, simply because we recognize what's most important. Now comes the work of having 24 hours in a day. Everybody has the same amount. Everybody has 24 hours a day. Now, where people tend to differentiate is how well they, one, manage the time that they have available to them, and two, how well they're able to streamline things. In other words, can you be doing one activity that is actually enriching 4 or 5 of your objectives? If your only objective at a job is to make money, then more than likely you're going to be unhappy because you're not using the law of proper perspective very well. Because money is not more than likely going to be number one on your priority list. And if it is, it's one of those funny things that you never have enough. You never seem to have enough of it. And of course, there's universal laws that help us identify that and change that mode of thinking so that we start to appreciate what we have, and our value seems to grow with less input. In any case, proper perspective means that you know what you need to be doing, and so therefore to harmonize with it, you have to either streamline or dedicate solid time and energy to it. My life is very streamlined. I want to be an educator. I am an educator, and I want to take it to the next level. So all of my activities and every single day that I do are dedicated to me becoming more educated and also freely offering it to others, and sometimes offering it as well through a business transaction if I have people that I'm coaching or teaching. And in my time, I also attempt to write and come up with creative ways of exploring ancient traditions and ancient topics that have a lot of relevance in the 21st century. So my life is pretty well harmonized with the law of proper perspective. Could I do better? Absolutely. There's a novel I'm working on that I'm about to come up to my 3rd year, and it's still not finished. My goal is to have it finished by the end of the year. That's one of the ways that you can harmonize with proper perspective. Having goals, having timelines, those can help you stay on pace with what you think is most important to you. Now, having this particular law presented to you is only going to be helpful if you use it to employ your life in a slightly different direction. In other words, you stay committed to the things that you think are most important. As you continually practice putting your time and energy into the most important things, you'll recognize that you feel better because things are less relevant and some things become more relevant. And you recognize that the things that are becoming more relevant are actually more productive than the things that are irrelevant. For instance, I can't change the temperature of the outside world because I happen to be a farmer. And so when I'm working outside, say I'm macheting through Sudan grass to put up an electric fence for the dairy herd to come in for their night paddock. And if it's really hot and there's lots of bugs, those aren't things that I'm going to be able to do anything about. It's going to be hot and there's going to be bugs, but I might be able to dress differently. I might be able to even put on some organic tea tree oil spray in order to have less bugs, or I can just use my mind and project those bugs to go find somebody else to munch on. And that's what I do. I give my time, attention, and energy to the things I can change, not to things like temperature. I can't change that necessarily. I can only change my way of looking at the world, and sometimes I can adjust my behavior, mental, emotional, and physical, and sometimes even spiritual, to adapt to the circumstances so that I can use those circumstances to streamline me towards my goals. So my recommendation for you, if you've stuck with me for these 8 minutes and 50 seconds, is that you need to, 1, identify what's most important, and then 2, come up with a solid plan of approach that you can go after those goals or harmonize with those goals, and make sure that most of your activities are going towards those more important goals. And then most importantly, or maybe just equally as important, you have to remember to practice this throughout the day. Creating a list and reading it once a day is sufficient sometimes, but if you're a present moment thinker and you don't tend to think about whatever it is that you're not in front of, then that's not going to help you. So you have to remind yourself throughout the day what's most important so that you stay on course and that you don't veer off course. Hope this was helpful. This is, again, the second universal law that we have talked about. The last one was in episode 6. There are 13 principles. Again, just a brief reminder. They are all different facets to the same whole. This is how a metaphysician looks at the world, and I'm giving this to you for free so that you can understand the metaphysical principles at work. You can also go to innerhealthtoday.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and then also if you see any products, books that I've written, or different one-on-one teachings that are available that you like, please feel free to use that click button and purchase some of those products. And you're more than welcome to go to the donate page or the support page and become a supporting member of this show. The more money that I receive through this, the more time and energy I can dedicate to it. As of right now, I've fit it in when I can, and I'm very pleased with that. But I also know that I could be reaching more and more people if I had more and more time. So money is a part of that, but give only if you want to. Don't feel pressured. I don't care if you feel pressured, then don't give. But if you want to give, you're the person. You're the person. So thank you very much. Again, this is the Metaphysics Hour. I'm your host, Rory Colgan. Hope you all are enjoying your beautiful life, and I hope it gets even better.